Mayor, at 6 o'clock.
We'll call the meeting to order. This is the Bella Vista City Council regular meeting for October 28, 2024. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Council members Snow.
Here.
Hughes.
Here.
Wozniak. Oh, he is absent. Wilms.
Here.
Fowler.
Here.
Hanschel.
Here.
And Mayor Flynn is here.
Thank you. And now we'll have citizen input. Per the rules, there's this 3-minute per person time limit to address the council on any topic of that person's choosing. Total time allotted for citizen input is 30 minutes. Doesn't look like we'll have a problem with that. The first citizen is Linda Lloyd of 102 Fairway Drive.
It is.
Okay. Normally, when I'm here to speak to you, it's about septics or real estate, but tonight it is not. I am here because I'm very disappointed in City Council for a specific reason. Frank Anderson was our first mayor. He was also sat on City Council, and before that, he worked for the POA for many years. At the September council meeting, his funeral service was announced that it was September 28th, so everybody knew when it was. During the service, numerous people who spoke, including the family, talked lovingly about what he felt about Bella Vista and the years he put in to making Bella Vista an amazing place to live. At the funeral service, the mayor was there, Larry Wilms was there, there were several prior council members there, Attorney Kelly was there, Chief Sims was there and spoke along with a ladder truck and a number of firemen. Tim Cook was there representing the police department along with a number of police cars and police officers. And our former city clerk, Wayne Jertson, was also there. Whether you all knew Frank or not, I think is immaterial. You all represent the city, you were elected to represent us, you're paid to represent us, and the family was horrendously disappointed that City Council and other city officials did not turn out in force to honor the time that Frank gave to this city. There was a reception afterwards at Lake Point, and there was more family there than attendees. That was pretty embarrassing also. So you all knew about it, and I think it would have been appropriate for every member of council to have been at Frank's service. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dan Bradney of 22 Forfar Circle.
Yes, I was unable to be here last month due to a family emergency, so we talked a little bit about my neighbors and people that are dealing with STRs. In particular, as ordinance 2023 relates, it's the final draft, for STRs and owners, and I think, overall everybody had taken, give and take to get it to the residents, and as long as we respect and adhere to the ordinance, the parameters that are in there, then we can all get along. I know most of you know this, but in one section in the preface of the ordinance, it talks about the council's here to protect the health, safety, and welfare of citizens, visitors, and the general community, as well as to protect residential, environmental, and property values. Rules are needed regulating the management and occupancy of short-term rentals. I think we've got that in place. The other item that struck my attention is the high occupancies and short-term rentals create a substantial risk to health and safety and have a high potential to create neighborhood nuisances, sorry about that. So again, I know there are many STRs that are, that do a good job. I've talked to people throughout the city and especially on the lakes where I live. And the majority are abiding and operating within the framework of the ordinance. Unfortunately, I live next door to an out-of-state STR owner, and sorry, I got a little confused here. Unfortunately, I live next door to an STR owner that has repeatedly violated Section 5 of the ordinance. And again, I'll refer to that directly. 5E, it says, at no time shall a short-term rental have or be offered for rent as having an occupancy greater than 3 guests per bedroom. The term bedroom shall have the same meaning as provided in the Arkansas Prevention Code. So, I don't have time to go through all the instances where the occupancy's been exceeded, and I'm talking about overnight guests too. The thing there is, I've had 4 instances, and the numbers of residents and guests that have stayed at a 3-bedroom, 9 maximum overnight guests have been 4 times since July. A lot of this has been reported previously. I've called them in the code enforcement. I think the code enforcement officer's been out twice. The other ones happened on weekend, and I didn't have availability to have the code enforcement because he wasn't there. So anyway, long story short, I think, we definitely need enforcement code guidelines. I'd be interested in hearing what the chief of police has to say today, because, thank you. Is that it? Thank you.
Thank you. Need enforcement. Okay, it's time now for a council member reply.
Mayor,
Jerry Snell.
to Ms. Lloyd, you're straight on. We should be ashamed for not being there. Unfortunately, I worked with Frank, was on the council when Frank was mayor, and have always said that we could not have had a better first mayor for Bella Vista. He did a fantastic job, kept a balance and kept a surplus in funds, but unfortunately on that particular day, I couldn't be there because of another situation. But you're correct. We should be ashamed of ourselves for not being there.
No, I would say, Frank, when I was first elected to the council, Frank was on the council. Had tremendous respect for him. I mean, he obviously had a wealth of experience and knowledge and background, and, watching him, I learned from him. I myself had a commitment that day, a prior commitment for, set for at least a couple months. So I had to make a decision. Maybe I didn't make the right decision. I don't know. But that's why I was not there, not in attendance. And I kind of struggled with whether, what I should do. But again, I already had the other prior commitment made, and I was going to have to back out of that. So that's the reason I was not there. Otherwise, I would have been there. So apologize for that, and apologize to the family. Dan, like you, I'm looking forward to hearing from the chief tonight, giving an update, overview on code enforcement, and see, how they're approaching it, and what we can do to address some of these issues, because I continue to get phone calls, from STR owners, and it's very worrisome to me. People are really frustrated, and I, like you, would like to see something done, and I would like to see or hear what constitutes a situation where an STR owner receives a citation. And I know a little bit more about the background of Dan and his particular situation that involves a person who is supposed to provide oversight for that property, where that situation actually went to court. And, to my knowledge, there's been no citation issued in that instance, and that's probably conversation for Jason and myself to see if the incident that went to court and how that ended up, if that constitutes a citation for an owner of that property that happened, on that property. So anyway, that's the conversation for after this meeting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from Chief Graves.
Okay, that's the council reply. Next item is action on the minutes, approval of the September 23, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Is there any discussion or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
That was Mr. Fowler and Mr. Wilms. Roll call vote.
Councilmembers Hanschel,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Wozniak is not here tonight, Wilms.
Yes.
And Fowler.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-0, or 5-0. Next one is approval of the minutes of October 1, 2024, special meeting minutes. Is there any discussion or a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
That was Mr. Wilms and Mr. Fowler. A roll call vote.
Councilmembers Hanschel.
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
he is absent, Wilms,
Yes.
and Fowler.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 5-0. Next one is 2024 Extra Mile Day Proclamation. I will read this. Extra Mile Day Proclamation 2024, City of Bella Vista. Whereas Bella Vista, Arkansas is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively, quote, go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Bella Vista, Arkansas is a community which encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Bella Vista, Arkansas is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who, quote, go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Bella Vista, Arkansas acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 550 Extra Mile cities in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1, 2024. Now therefore, I, Mayor of Bella Vista, Arkansas, do hereby proclaim November 1, 2024 to be Extra Mile Day. I urge each individual in the community to take time on this day to not only, quote, go the extra mile in his or her own life, but to also acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make the organization's, families, community, country, or world a better place. Signed, John D. Flynn, Mayor of Bella Vista. Next item on the agenda is the monthly financial report ending August 31, 2024. The report is available on our website, and I believe City Council has had it. I wanted to cite a few things. The operating revenues are up year-to-date 3.1% compared to last year. City sales tax is up 6.4%, and county sales tax continues to be short of what we've become used to, but it is up a little bit. It's up 1.1%. It was only flat last month, so starting to show some improvement there, which is encouraging. On the operating expense side, we are $1.3 million below budget. So we're trying hard to keep things in line, but The total operating expenditures are 12.6 million. And as I said, that's 1.3 million below budget. So we're having some success so far this year, and hoping to continue on with that. But we're continuing to see a little softness, particularly on the county side with the sales tax compared to the usual. But the city sales tax is doing well. So that's the financial report as of the end of August. So we'll be looking carefully at the rest of the year to see how things go. The next report is Bella Vista Public Library report, and I believe Director Suzanne Adams is here to deliver that.
Good evening, counselors. Mayor Flynn.
Hello.
I'm Suzanne. I'm the library director at Bella Vista Public Library, the best library around. I brought my assistant director, Amanda Gibson. She's also adult services librarian. And you have the packet that we put together with the report. Okay, I want to bring to your attention the quarterly report. When you look at this, it's for July, August, and September only. We do a quarterly report for many boards, and just so that we can keep things in track. And so this, we don't have to go over unless you want to. I brought a snapshot, a 5-year snapshot to talk about. And then Amanda might have some things to go over that are important, but this 5-year snapshot is really what I wanted to present tonight. So I just wanted you to see the difference. So this is really incredible. If you follow along, we did take out certain services and displayed them by the year. And I used 5 years, the last 5 years. And if you see, 2020 was COVID. So I thought about taking that out since it's so skewed because we were closed so much in COVID. So the stats were kind of low that year, but look how it's gone up. Now, let's look at the new library cards issued. This means new people that come into the library. This is not existing people, and this is new. So whenever we report, so as we give new cards to people who have been in the community before, if they've lost their card or their account has expired. This is everyone new. And so this is incredible in terms of the amounts that we're seeing. So the last bar, EOY, is end of year. We've done an estimate for 2024 at the end of December in that EOY, and that we think we're going to even go above that. But we just averaged the year to get that bar. The patron visits by year are equally astounding. They just climb up, and as you see in 2024, that's just to the end of September. So I think somebody told me, Daylene, our circulation manager, told me we'd already surpassed 2023 the other day in new cards.
That's right.
Yeah. So they just keep coming. Library programs is another service. These are only the programs that the city pays for. This is what the library staff puts on for the community. We also have other programs that are in the library from the community, but these are what staff-led programs. And it tells you every year and how many programs we offered and the total attendance. If you would look at the end of year estimate, I think it'll be above that. So that's, to me, just very impressive. We've even had to open several new story time because we had too many, and like maybe 80 and 100 people showing up. So we opened 2 on Fridays, so that was an extra program. And now the big kids story time, which is Tuesday nights, it's now getting too full for 1. So lots of families. And then the circulation statistics are also very impressive. As you can see, what that is all of the items that are checked in and checked out by the public, and we divide them up between adult materials and children's materials, so you can kind of see the difference there. But in all groups, those are also growing. That's the 5-year snapshot. But when we come back, and hopefully we can come back, it would be my honor to come back, in January or February and give an annual report so you can see the end of those numbers. And then the report that you have a lot of nice pictures. I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to add that I left out.
I don't have anything to add unless you have any questions.
What do you attribute the difference in the attendance in 2023 and 24?
Well, we won't know that yet until the end, but it's just, we're just getting a lot more people through the door. They're moving here. I just moved to Bella Vista. Sometimes the library is literally the first stop. Sometimes they don't even have a house yet, which makes it hard to get them a free card.
Yeah, I think to me, it's interesting is just how much reading is done either online or through ebooks, right? And you know, my wife, I don't know, she reads like a book or two a week. It's ebook, right? But even given that, you know, the attendance at the library is pretty incredible. I think probably a lot of it has to do with the programs and things that you put on, and that draws a lot of people in.
It is.
You know, but yeah, that. I don't know. I mean, I just would have thought that libraries maybe wouldn't be doing so well today, but obviously that's not the case. So yeah, congratulations. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank you.
Greg?
I just wanted to say, I've worked closely with you guys the past, 4 or 5 months. Y'all do outstanding work, and I think the numbers reflect the hard work that you guys, your entire team out there has committed to the library. I think it's really important that y'all are acknowledged in that way. And I guess honestly, I didn't even know that the library was a city service, and I sound really naive in saying that. I knew, you know, it just didn't occur to me, you know. But how all of that is put together with all the programs and everything else that you guys do, it's amazing. I mean, to see all the kids in that place, every time I come up there, there's a billion kids up there. So the only other thing that I was gonna ask was, getting back to the city service thing, I guess this might be for Jason, how is the library structured? Is that with the foundation involved with that, with the city service? How does that work in conjunction with each other?
So when I came back here to work again in 2013, one of the first things we were working on at that time with Frank was to bring the library into the city as a city function. And so it's a city department. We took ownership of the collection, so the city owns all the books, the materials, everything in the library, the furnishings, everything. The city entered into a lease agreement with the Bella Vista Public Library Foundation that owns the building, and for a minimal rent, and with the agreement that we do things like do upkeep and things like that. So the foundation continues to own the building. The foundation is there to support the library and continues to do so. They meet, but the library itself, the operations of the library, the employees of the library, our city functions, answering to the mayor and ultimately to you for budget. The city created a library advisory board. So there is a city library board that is advisory to the city on matters related to the library. That's in addition to the foundation, which has a board. There's another group called the Friends of the Library. That group is a support group for the library, which is independent of the foundation and independent of the advisory board and the city. They are the ones that operate the bookstore that's in there when you go into the left, where they sell the used books, which they use to support the library. That's a separate group. So there are several support groups, a lot of people that.
Could you try again?
No, Siri, I won't. Anyway, sorry about that. But it's a city department, to answer the short answer to your question.
Okay, And that was the only thing that I just wanted to make sure that I understood, was that the board just handles all the exterior things, all the physical property things, and the city.
Foundation.
The board, the foundation.
The foundation, I'm sorry.
Owns the building, and they fundraise, and Suzanne can answer more about what all they do, but they are a supporting function to the city's library operation. The city operates the library, the foundation owns the building, contributes to the operation of the library as a support organization. And there are a lot of people involved. Sometimes it gets a little complicated.
Oh,
for
I
folks.
understand, and that's what I mean. I just wanted to make sure, that's just making sure that I understand that any internal decisions that are made as a city function, that's, the board is excluded, the city stands alone.
Yeah, the city operates the library.
Okay.
So, and we have possession of the building. So, if we decide what books get bought, we decide priorities of the library ultimately in terms of budget, all those things. We operate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a question, just looking at your numbers, I just sat here, thinking while Craig was talking. But evidently, I mean, I don't know if this is a correct statement or not, but the library is more than just being about books, is what my takeaway would be. It has to be. You offer something to the community that's above and beyond, right? That attracts people to it. They come there, they feel comfortable, they like the environment, like-minded people, that they probably meet in the programs. So again, it's got to be more than just about books.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is a community center, and people meet there for that,
Right.
to provide a community. We do all kinds of things. I mean, we have free internet in the parking lot for people who do not have that. That's a minor thing, but you just don't think of all the little minor things. We have free use of computers. Some people who, they don't have a computer, or they don't have electricity for some reason, they don't have internet, they come in and they use our computers, and we help them.
Yeah, you provide a huge service. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just try to cater to every age. Some ages are a little bit more difficult, but if you recall when I told you the big kids story time is almost needing 2, that's been a very low attendance for years, and all of a sudden it's just exploded. I don't know, did she say 20 last week? And it used to be, when I first got here, it was 5, 6
Max,
kids.
yeah.
And our youth services department, they are so creative. They can just do, you'll see some of in the report, if you go and look at it, the pictures of the kids and all they do. We provide STEAM activity, which is very educational and fun. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Wendy Hughes.
And then kind of as a role I have in the area, as a city councilor, as a member of the foundation board, and as the PTO president at Cooper Elementary, thank you for your community involvement. Like, you partner with us in different ways. As a foundation, our job is to help support you guys. And thank you for letting us partner with you in that capacity to expand it and make it better, and have future plans to make it even greater than it is right now. And on the school side of it, you guys come to our events, and the children love it, we love it, and we are so glad to have that literacy partnership, because we know that literacy is so huge and important in our community. Because if you can't read, it's hard to get very far. And again, like I said, libraries are for everybody. Everyone belongs to the library. It doesn't matter how old you are, what your religious status is, what your age is, your gender, nothing matters. All that matters is that you belong, and I just thank you guys for providing a safe space for everyone in our community. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone can contact me. There's so many things I could say. We don't have all night. But you can contact us at any time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay?
The next topic is code enforcement report from Police Chief James Graves.
little packet up there with just some brief highlights from code enforcement. I thought it was a pretty good time to come in since code enforcement was brought over under the PD and just sort of talk about what that entailed and kind of where we've been since there and where we're going. If everybody remembers, in 2023 is when code enforcement, July 2023 was brought over under the PD. We just thought it'd be a better fit, and it made sense to me since we already had animal control and my officers already did write code violations. I thought it'd be smoother to do that after working with the mayor and talking to the mayor. I agreed that it would be a good thing to do. And so we brought over 3 code officers in 2023. At the time, we had to develop procedure, or July of 2023, we had to develop procedures. We put together a code officer training program to ensure that they're doing their job like we wanted it done. You know, the PD, we have procedures and policies for everything we do. We make sure everybody sort of has the guidelines of what the expectations are. We had to spend time upfitting we brought 3 trucks over. We spent some time upfitting their trucks. We put computers in their trucks. Our idea was to, much like patrol officers, to make sure they could be in the field as much as possible. So we put computers in their vehicles, and then we had a couple of their trucks fail on us. They were at the end of life, unfortunately for us, and so we had to shuffle a little bit and give them some cars, but same thing. So we got them some equipment, got them their vehicles outfitted. We kind of changed our reporting system as well. I know that was kind of, some people didn't like that necessarily. But you know, under the PD, everything comes in through dispatch. We have a way of doing things. There's a reason for that. So when folks ask us, when we get FOIAs, or council members may ask us, hey, chief, how many of these did you do, or how many of those did you do? I can go back, I can go to my dispatch center, I can run a report, and I could usually pull up stats so we could track things and kind of know what's going on. So we had all the reporting done through dispatch. Either folks will call in through our non-emergency number, and report code violations just like they would any other non-emergency type crime. And they would get tracked like that. Code officers or officers would be dispatched at that point. Or a lot of times they were on-sited by either the code officers or sometimes referred to us by other city staff or personnel reference a specific violation. So that's kind of the way that we'll get complaints now. We don't have a random email that people could just randomly email a whole bunch of complaints in. That it's not even an efficient way for us to do business. And so I know that was kind of, some citizens had to get used to calling in and reporting things, but that was one of the sort of growing pains, but it's working out pretty good now. And again, we're going to be able to keep pretty good stats moving forward as the time ticks by and we get some full years under our belt. We'll be able to get a good gauge of what they're doing and what our major complaints are, where our major problems are, specific short-term rentals and stuff that we could hopefully focus on to resolve some of these individual issues. Then another sort of hiccup we had. Unfortunately, we brought 3 code officers over with us within the first part of this year, 2024. Unfortunately, one of them passed away. He was rather sick and had some medical problems and passed away, so we lost him. The other one decided to quit a few months back, more at the beginning of the year. It wasn't for him anymore, and I have my opinion as to why, but he just decided to go elsewhere. So that left 1 code officer with us for several months. He did a great job, but he was by himself. He was a one-man band. A lot of his time was spent, because this is the same time when the short-term rental ordinance was passed, and then we're getting the list of people applying for permits, and we had to go through, and it's in the packet, we had to go through about 140 or so of these individuals to get them compliant with getting a short-term rental permit. He spent a lot of time doing that. So during there was a few month period during this year that probably we weren't doing a lot of the proactive on-site code enforcement stuff that we would like to do to help keep some of these complaints down. But since then, mid-year, we were able to hire 2 other good code officers. We spent some time getting them all trained up. So I'm happy to report, as of a couple months ago, we have 3 fully trained, equipped code officers that are out there, I believe, doing some great work. And you know, in the packet, there's a few stats there. You know, again, they've been with us now since 2023. Really, mid-2024, probably a couple months ago is when we really have hit our full stride, I do believe, with these 3 officers being fully trained and equipped. You can see in 2024 alone, thus far, we've done 738, we've received 738 violations. So those would be people calling in, complaining, and we followed up on 393 of them. Now, when I say follow-up, that's extensive follow-up. That would be like if you look in your packet and there's a residence there that had some retaining walls they were putting in and they were doing it improperly. So it's a call like that would take several follow-ups. They would be listed in that follow-up. Most of these that were just violations. An example might be if somebody's boat is parked in their driveway, or a trailer. We may go out there and say, hey, your boat or your trailer can't be in your driveway. This is the city ordinance that dictates that. We're going to come back in a couple of days and make sure it's moved. And so that wouldn't necessarily result in a follow-up being logged because it's a very short thing. So, my philosophy is we treat code enforcement a lot like we treat a lot of our other enforcement. We're here to. A lot of these are quality of life issues. They affect neighborhoods. They affect residents. What I like to do is I like to educate and I like to change behavior. Okay, I think that's the best course of action. When code enforcement, before it came to the PD, almost all of their follow-up was done through the mail. They'd send letters like if you had a boat in your yard or if your grass was too tall. They would send you a letter saying, hey, basically, you got to cut your grass or else, okay? I don't think that was a real good way of doing business to me. That's, I think we need to do face-to-face contact. So I've given direction to my folks that, we'll do face-to-face contact. If we get a complaint of tall grass, we'll go to that residence, we'll knock on the door, we'll introduce ourselves, we'll say your grass is too tall and you have to cut it, and we're going to come back and we're going to follow up and we're going to explain to them what the violation is and what they're doing wrong. And by doing that, we get a lot fewer complaints. When I say complaints, that we get a lot fewer mad citizens because they get a letter in the mail scolding them for tall grass, okay? So a lot of our time, a lot of what we do is we follow up, we do face-to-face contacts. We try to gain compliance, we try to change behavior, and then in the end, if we need to, we issue citations. But, we're finding 98% of the time, people want to be compliant. They don't want to cause problems. Sometimes, people will run across folks that are having some financial problems or some medical problems, and their grass is tall because, the husband's been in the hospital. So we'll find ways to help them to take care of their problem. But, I know a lot of questions come up reference short-term rentals. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have. I just don't want to ramble on forever. I just wanted to give sort of an oversight of the way we do code enforcement. I see moving forward us being very proactive. One of my things I'd like to do is we spend a lot of our time going to building sites. I think that's very important. We build 500 houses a year here now, and we have a lot of active building sites. Those have generated a lot of complaints in the past. I'm sure folks here in the audience have had houses being built on their block, and there's dumpsters there. It's disruptive, it's dirty, there's trash. So we spend a lot of time, my code officers will go out proactively to these building sites to make sure they stay clean, and if they don't, to make sure they get cleaned up, and or if they won't comply, then we'll issue citations if we have to. But that's always the last resort as far as I'm concerned, because like I say, most people want to be compliant. So I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Yes, sir?
I know we've seen, I don't recall the number, but we've seen a number of people who come to a council meeting complaining about a code enforcement issue that they have called or made a complaint, and no one responded to the complaint. I know you followed those people out and talked to them. Is there is there something there, a miscommunication or something, or what? Have you determined what the problem is, or if there was a problem?
Sure. That's a great question, and I sit back in the audience, and it's a little frustrating sometimes, because I'll find 9 times out of 10, if not more, it's not really the way it sounds. I find very, very rarely do we not respond if we're called to do something. Now, there have been times, I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen, when we have new dispatchers who, and I was speaking to a gentleman tonight, I'm gonna follow up with him. He insists he called dispatch and said he had a code problem. And they said, well, it's after hours or it's the weekend, there's no code officer, so we can't come out now. That's not the proper way of doing business. We don't do that because our officers respond on those situations then for the code violation. So I told him I'll follow up with dispatch. Sometimes we get new dispatchers who aren't fully trained, and sometimes those things can happen. But 9 times out of 10, I'll follow people out after they complain to the council members here, and I'll flag them down out before they leave. I'll say, hey, can you please tell me, you know, you said you called a whole bunch. Can you tell me when you called and you know, what happened? You said nobody responded. Well, we really didn't call because we know nothing will happen. And 9 times out of 10, that's what I get is we just don't call because nothing will happen. So it's really hard to defend that. You know, it's really hard for me to respond to that because I'm not saying we can always solve problems because we can't necessarily because, you know, the law is the law and we have to follow the law. And sometimes ordinances are very hard to enforce. The occupancy ordinance is one of them, okay? It was really established and designed at the front end for advertising, okay? So people couldn't advertise you know, sleeps 12 when they have 3 rooms, okay? It's very difficult for law enforcement to go out in the middle of the night, okay? And I mean, I don't think anybody here wants me going out to their house in the middle of the night, knocking at midnight and saying, hey, I need to count how many heads you have in the pillows, okay? If I did that, we'd have a lot bigger problems, all right? So I think sometimes citizens will read an ordinance and they'll go, well, why won't the cops do anything? Because I just counted 15 people walk in that house and only 9 can be there. No, only 9 can sleep there, okay? But I can't dictate what people do in their house all night long, whether it be sleep or play cards or sit up drinking or watch TV or watch movies, okay? And I can't kick down a door to see if people are watching movies or what they're doing, okay? So that's kind of, you know, we write these ordinances, but we don't really fully understand that the enforcement side of it is a lot different than what it looks like on paper. Questions?
I'll be brief.
Greg?
The only thing I was going to ask, with all, I know it's like, you know, nuisance type stuff, and I know that's primarily driven towards the code guys. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands, no matter what it is, they can always call the police
Yes.
and report anything. They don't have to wait until the next day or Monday or anything like that, right?
No, absolutely. And that's part of the problem I get, and I don't blame people, but people are afraid. They think, well, I don't want to call the cops because, you know, they're playing their music too loud because they got more important things to do. And I always try to educate people, say, you know, you call us no matter what. I mean, if you're calling us because their music's too loud, we're not gonna come to you before we go help somebody who's getting beaten up. Okay, so you're not gonna, you know, we prioritize things. So I tell people, please call. If you don't call, okay, we can do nothing. Even if you do call and nothing seems to get done, what happens is it gets logged in our RPS system. And then if the other neighbor calls, it gets logged again. Well, then guess what? Then when we start running a report saying, where are our problem areas, okay? We see, wow, we had 5 calls about this house. Well, maybe we need to focus a little more on this house and see if there's some other tools or other things we can do to solve this problem. Go ahead.
I just had one more, and I'm done.
Sure.
The only other thing I was going to ask was that, I don't know, we get the arrest reports and all that kind of stuff monthly, I think. Is there any way that they could earmark like a complaint or whatever that is located at an STR, just because that's the information that we don't have. I mean, we're kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
And, you know, unless there's just an uproar, I don't know, you know, what's going on in neighborhoods. And that's not a cop-out. I mean, I just don't know. But the information that we have, I don't know if it's the complaints are being driven by STRs or driven by just, you know, residents.
I don't disagree with you. And what I'm going to start doing is I talk to my folks, talked to my folks last week, I'm gonna start, and I'll have it for you next council meeting. I'm starting bringing to every council meeting, at least me have some stats. I'm gonna run STR violations, I'm gonna run violations associated with STRs and try to scoop all that up as best I can. Have any problem areas if we've had a couple calls that month, and I'm gonna have it with me, okay? So if we have people come up complaining or saying, this is what's going on, I'd be happy, and I told the mayor, please call on me and let me, come up and say, yeah, this did happen and this was what happened in that case, or no, we had no report of this. Because I understand where you folks are coming from, because you get citizens calling you complaining, and you're trying to keep your constituents happy. I don't blame you, okay? But I can assure you that we at the police department, now we're not perfect. I have people who work for me, and people are gonna be people, and sometimes people make mistakes. But if we get calls, we're going to go do what we can do to resolve those issues. I mean, that's just the way it is, okay? So for people to say, I get all these calls, and then what I need to do is please, if people call you, if you can ask them, did you call the police? Well, no. Well, please call the police. Make sure you call the police, okay? And if they don't want to call, then maybe, ask them, well, what's the address? Okay, what time did it happen? And then when I come to these council meetings, you can bring it to me yourself, and I'm able to look into it a little better. But, I think what we have going on, I think we have a few problem areas in the city, probably, because we do have a couple areas, I think, that have neighborhoods that might have a couple short-term rentals, or just we have maybe a couple problem areas that we need to build a focus on. But if people aren't calling, okay, we had a couple folks in here, I think, a meeting before last, a couple months ago, that I think they have 3 short-term rentals in their block now, 3. I followed them out afterwards, and I asked them, hey, when did you call last time? Because you're saying we're not responding. Well, we just don't call anymore. And I'm like, well, please call, because otherwise we can't do anything. And I'm not saying we'll be able to necessarily do something, because we have ordinances, like we have the parking ordinance is easy, okay? Because short-term rentals, they have to have 2 off-street parking spots available, and the residents there can't park on the street overnight. So if we get those calls, we can usually deal with those, okay? Noise ordinances, they can call us on that. We could try to deal with noise ordinances as best we can. There's other things we can do, but we have to treat them like any other citizen, okay? I don't come to your house on Thanksgiving and give you a hard time for you having 20 people in your house all night long. I don't think you'd want me to. So it's really hard for us to single out a short-term rental and go in there and count heads and pillows, because we just can't do that. They have Fourth Amendment concerns and things like that. There's just certain things we can do and we can't do.
Chief, if I could follow up on one thing you said, because I see some of these cases, of course, when they come to court and they plead not guilty, and then we end up in front of the judge. I can talk to you about 2 situations. One is the one Mr. Fowler asked about, the gentleman that spoke. That was a trial. That actually was a battery case and leaving the scene of a property damage accident, were the charges in that case. In that particular case, it was the caretaker of a short-term rental who was at the short-term rental there to do something, had backed up his truck into the gentleman who spoke tonight's mailbox and broke it, and had driven off. And the spouse saw this and they tried to flag him down, get him to stop. They called the owner, who was out of state. They had been in contact with the owner, I believe, was in Nebraska. That person called the caretaker, told him to come back to the property. He did so. A dispute ensued. It became physical. People ended up rolling on the ground. There were some injuries involved, and the criminal case related to the battery charge and the hitting of the mailbox. That wasn't a short-term rental tenant. It wasn't related to the actual leasing of the property. It was a caretaker incident with the neighbor, and it came out during that trial. There had been a lot of problems there. So, and that person was convicted and did not appeal, and so that's done as far as I know. That wasn't a short-term rental ordinance violation. That was a much more serious offense. It was a misdemeanor offense. I can tell you, we also had, there's some citations and some, due to some of the work that's been going on. In terms of the short-term rental ordinance, we did have a violation of the short-term rental ordinance come to court a couple of months ago. They had basically an owner that was, I would just say obstinate. I'm not going to. And his response to everything to me and to the enforcement officers, even up before he saw the judge, was just smart aleck. He was convicted. And so that the process worked. I assume he got a permit. If he didn't, he's going to get another ticket. So we've had that as well, and the judge convicted on that. And so things happen. We're doing things. We're not going to talk about cases that are in process or anything like that. We hear a lot more people say, nothing's happening, and then like the chief said, if you don't report it, they can't do anything. If they can't do anything, I can't do anything. If I can't do anything, the judge doesn't hear it to fine anybody. Nothing happens. So it's got to get started by somebody contacting an enforcement officer so they can do what they do, then they can give it to me, and we can give it to the court, and we can do it. So, and we're glad to.
And let's be honest, I'm gonna say something here that probably, some people wouldn't want to hear, but not everybody who complains about a violation is a violation, okay? Maybe it's just like if you have some folks over at your house and somebody complains you're too loud and we come by and we're like, yeah, they're just, they have a few folks over, they're not really that loud. We knock on the door and say, hey, can you hold it down? You're disturbing your neighbor. Sure, I'll hold it down, sorry. And we go away. I mean, I think that's the way we need to treat everybody, okay? So, we're here again to educate people, to solve problems. I understand short-term rentals are, they are a bigger problem in that you have different families there a lot of times all the time. And so we do need to hopefully take a little better approach. And I think when we start getting some stats built up and we can focus on, hey, this specific house is a problem. Then maybe I can come back to council. We do have, 3 or 4 in the city that are continual problems. Maybe there's something we could work with our staff attorney and maybe figure out another way, another approach to maybe tighten down a little bit on some of these that are real problems. But the tools we have are the tools we have in law enforcement. And again, the short-term rental ordinance was not the magic bullet to solve the problem necessarily. It solved it on the front end on advertising, right? Because we had a big problem with people advertising sleeps 20, and you're like this 3-bedroom house, this is ridiculous. And so we solved it on that end, but it didn't necessarily solve it on the other end.
Okay. So, first of all, I really appreciate, you came and, before the council to have a conversation about this. I think that's great. I mean, I do, because it was just time to have the conversation.
Sure.
Out loud, right? Because I continually get calls, and I don't know about other members of the council. We're not able to communicate with each other, so I really don't know. And what I'd like to do is just kind of take a step back a little bit, because we're having a short-term rental conversation, it feels like, generally. And there are issues that I get calls in that regard. But to me, it's a code enforcement conversation, and it's about a myriad of different situations that may be violations, or maybe not, to your point. I don't know. It isn't just about short-term rentals, okay? Because I get calls and have gotten calls from residents in the community about different things, right? And one of the things I consistently hear is that whenever they make a call, they feel like they immediately get into a debate with someone. They get challenged, and they don't like that. It doesn't feel good. They don't feel like people are really listening to them. Look, this is regardless whether it's a short-term rental or whether it's another issue, right? I had a gentleman just call me the other day, again, about a situation with a home on his street. And and I wouldn't do this anyway, but he said, look, I really don't want to be called out in public or anything like that. So I don't operate that. I don't work that way. So it isn't just about short-term rentals. And I also want to say, because I'm going to get teed up on this, okay? Just trust me, I will, from a certain faction within the city that thinks I'm trying to make this that, and I'm not. We have many short-term rentals owners and operators in this community that do a great job. Matter of fact, you have been commended, your department has been, because the short-term rental owner gets a call in the middle of the night, there's a big party going on, and they go over to the home, they want to clear it out of the people that are there. Your police officers came over, and they stayed with these owners of this property all throughout the process while the people got their belongings, and they left and vacated the home. They don't want things like that going on at their home, okay? It's not just abiding by the rules that the city wrote, it's also just the right thing to do, right? So many responsible short-term rental owners in Bella Vista, and I would even say, people are going to cringe on the other side of this. I'm glad they're here. Short-term rentals, if you want to call them that, vacation rentals have always been a part of this community, right? And they're going to continue to be, just like they are everywhere else. So I hope we can strike some balance of this, right? Where short-term rental issues kind of take care of themselves. I wish they would. But again, I had a conversation that's kind of taking a different turn here with one of your officers a couple days ago. And I had something I want to report myself. And I got into this conversation. And it's like, well, this is a violation, right? I mean, you're not supposed to do this. It's written in the ordinance. It is. But there's a little leeway. And I don't even want to get into the specifics of the conversation. We can have this on the side. But I got challenged, I felt like. And then this is written in the code. And this violation is happening. But we kind of like mitigate it a little bit, work with it in the middle, and allow a situation to go ahead and take place. That was the call. And I'm like, well, if it's a violation, it's a violation. So anyway, I kind of experienced that myself. It wasn't a resident in the community calling me. Just FYI. So I don't know how to handle that, and I'll have a conversation with you about that on the side. I would prefer to do that.
Sure, that's fine.
But, and I would also like to say about code enforcement officials, the gentleman you're talking about, the officer, Mark, you know, he's handled a couple of situations really great, right? I mean, he took ownership of a particular neighborhood that's an issue, it has been an issue, right? And he took some actions and some steps there where residents, the people in this neighborhood, were allowed the opportunity to clean things up, and we provided a conduit for them to do that. And it was really terrific, and I go by that neighborhood about, I don't say every 2 weeks, but every 3 to 4 weeks, just to look at it and check it out and see that it's holding, right? And it's looking good. So I really want to commend Mark in that regard. Publicly, I'd like to say that. I'm not calling out the neighborhood, but I'm just saying some steps were taken, and he initiated them. I know that, and he did a wonderful job. And it's not an easy job. It is not easy. I've ridden with code enforcement officials before when they're going up to a home and they're making a call and they're going to knock on a door. What I would say is, too, I think this community supports active code enforcement, not complaint-based, right?
We do active code enforcement.
And that's great, but the initial conversations we had, I thought they were going to be more kind of like
They
complaint-based, right?
they were misconstrued, okay?
Okay, all right, that's great. And I'm supportive of knocking on a door and seeing if you can mitigate that before a citation or anything like that is issued, and give somebody a period of time to clean it up and to fix it. I mean, I got that myself before I was on city council. I had a boat beside my house. I didn't even know it was a violation, right? And I got a letter, and I was like, well.
Wouldn't you rather that a face-to-face contact?
I would. It didn't really rub me the wrong way necessarily.
Then you're
Not
unique.
me, it didn't.
You're
Some
unique.
people it maybe would. But I got it, and I'm like, well, I didn't know that I wasn't allowed to do that, right? And because I just bought a boat, didn't know where to put it beside my house, didn't think much about it. But I got it, and I said, you know what? I get it, right? If I can put my boat beside my house, then somebody else can do that. Somebody's going to now park it in their driveway. Now it's going to be in front of the house. One thing leads to another. So I rectified it. I took my boat. I rented a space at the POA location over by the Boys Club, right? I got a spot over there and moved my boat over there. Took care of it. But I'm just saying, you know, rather than me getting a citation and given the opportunity to take care of it, I appreciated that.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just saying, I'm glad we're having this conversation out loud in public. We've recognized that we maybe have some issues and some things to figure out. On the other hand, to a degree, I know it's working as well. But I hope we continue to figure this out, right, for the residents that live here. Because people that live here, I'm telling you, man, when I was first elected 8 years ago, it was all about code enforcement, nuisance ordinances not being enforced. I got rung up for it. And we took some steps forward as a city and rectified some of that. And I went from getting all kinds of phone calls to virtually receiving none. So something was working, right? And I think maybe from this, maybe we're maybe going to hopefully head back that direction, and maybe we're closer than I think. I don't know. I hope so. But again, I appreciate you stepping forward and having this conversation public, because there were people that were waiting to hear it, right? So thank you. It's not an easy job. I understand that. But I was going to say, the residents that moved to Bella Vista, a lot of them move here for a reason, and one of them is they want to live in an orderly community, right? They don't want to move somewhere where anything goes. They really like that aspect of Bella Vista, and in regard to all the nature things that our people have, grown to love, and that's why they move here. All that kind of stuff. They want to keep it. They want to keep a clean, neat, orderly city. So
Sure.
thanks for your efforts.
Appreciate that.
We're not, we can sit here and try to beat people up all day long. That's not going to accomplish anything. But hopefully we can get some of these complaints about no enforcement, in some people's opinion, to where we're at a point where people's concerns are allayed and we can move on.
Well, that's the whole idea, but, we'll be able to have some good stats moving forward, and what it'll come down to is if somebody thinks there's no enforcement, well, we'll at least have some stats, and then maybe we'll have a conversation. Do we need more code enforcement officers? Because obviously they're doing a lot of work, and they're very busy, and they're always occupied, but if we have numerous complaints that appear to not be addressed, then we'll go that route. But when I hear nothing's being done, that to me is a non-starter. I'm sorry, I won't accept that, and that's unfair. And I wish when people would hear that, they'd push back a little bit. I appreciate Larry pushing back last council meeting when the citizens said nothing's done, because that to me is just a non-starter. Now that's their perspective in their own little bubble, and I understand that. But then, when I ask, if calls are being made and I'm told no, that we can't help if people don't call. And I understand when people call dispatch, and dispatch, they receive a call reference, a child needing CPR or something. They ask a lot of questions, and they receive a call reference a code issue. They ask a lot of questions. So I think sometimes maybe that's some of the feeling citizens may be getting when they're being questioned a lot, because dispatch is taught to ask numerous questions, to have a lot of information to be able to pass this along. So, we could always improve in that regard, I think.
So dispatch, the code enforcement complaint comes in just like anything else would,
Yes.
right? Yeah, and I don't even know how to rectify this, but maybe if you just had a code enforcement, you can't have its own dispatch, but
No.
you know what I mean? Where it's managed, like code enforcement, if a complaint comes in and it comes into code enforcement, not just like a regular
It's like
complaint.
any other call, though. It comes in the dispatch, like
okay.
any other call to be dispatched. I don't see why it should be treated differently. I don't see why an ordinance violation with code should be treated differently than another violation in the city or another crime in the city. They all come in, they're all prioritized, and they get sent out to the proper authority to deal with them. That's just the best way to do things, because it helps us to prioritize things. It helps us to know how much work we have and how much work how many things are going on in the city and how to keep track of them in one area. Yes.
Larry?
You mentioned in here, in the last page, about 142 SDR owners that you made contact with. Taylor, do we know how many permits we've issued so far in SDRs?
Just a little over 400. We've got 85 that still have not been implemented.
Out of how many recorded?
Around 410. There's 497 identified, and about 410 out of them. So around 80, 85 still in permit.
So we had about 410 permitted. So they're actually licensed, and so, now the question I have for you, Chief, is knowing that, do you have all of those identified when a call comes in and you look at that property address or recognize that property address from your dispatch? Do they know it's an STR property right away?
They should.
I mean, is it tagged somehow?
It should be.
And who does that?
Our dispatch would do that.
So they take the list of permits,
Yeah, we'd have to get into our CAD system, and we'd have to tag each house individually.
so somebody does that?
Yes.
I know that's an assignment that's in your department to continue to update that, and, okay, all right, that's what I was wondering. So that when a call comes into ABC 14th Street, you look at that, your dispatchers know as well.
They should know it's a
SDR
short-term
property.
rental, and they should have information
Yeah,
that they need.
okay.
Yes.
So it's probably a code issue. That should be a red light that flashes in their head that says, probably a code issue, and so we need to refer that to so-and-so.
Well, they know if it's a code issue and there's an on-duty code officer, they'll refer a code officer. If it's a code
Right.
issue and there's not, they'll refer a police officer.
Right, yeah. Okay. Thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it,
thanks.
Chief.
Anything else?
Thank you very much. The next thing is I would like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules of order and procedure and allow all ordinances on the agenda to be read by title only.
So moved. Second.
That was Mr. Snow and Mr. Fowler. Roll call vote.
Council members Hanschel,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes,
Fowler.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. The first item on the agenda under new business is actually a resolution. It's amending the 2024 city budget to appropriate an additional $132,849.76 to the information technology budget to accommodate unforeseen expenses related to a cybersecurity incident, corrective actions, and improvements. I believe there was some discussion of this at the work session. However, if you have questions, Sydney Reynolds is here from the IT department. Anybody wants to go over anything else?
No, John covered it pretty thoroughly at the work session, and he said, one of the things you said, I think, is kind of important. It wasn't just to cover the cost associated with taking care of it and managing it, but it's for also some additional corrective actions or processes put in place, you know, to further tighten up, you know, and hope ensure that we don't, well, what I said, that we don't successfully get attacked in the future, right? Because
Yeah.
we didn't successfully get attacked this time,
Yeah,
thankfully.
yeah. And I should note, of the 132,000, as you know, it appears a significant amount of that will be covered by insurance.
Yeah.
Move that be approved.
Second.
That was Mr. Snow and Mr. Fowler. Roll call vote.
Council members Snow,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Wilms,
yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
and Hanschel.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Thank you for that. Next one is an ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2024-55647, county parcel number 16-70260-003, from R1 residential single-family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. And this has to do with the Tanyard Creek Trailhead area. Is there any
Could we have the
discussion?
applicant come forward and just kind of give a little background voiceover for what this is and why they're requesting it?
Mr. Judson?
Good evening. What we're trying to do is solve a parking problem. The trail is so loved by everybody that we get too many people come, and without the grass parking area, which you kindly accommodated us with, they're parking on the street, blocking people's driveways, parking on people's yards and so forth. And it's a very narrow road in that area, and if an emergency vehicle had to go through there, it would be a problem. So we're changing it so that way we can expand that parking lot down the road. One thing that came up, people always have concerns that we're going to do something different in the future. We have no plans of doing that. Also remember that piece of property has a deed restriction on it. The deed restriction prevents us from engaging in commercial activity. So opening up a store or something crazy like that. We have no interest in doing that. The only thing we're interested in doing is expanding the parking lot. Any questions?
No, I like to say, so whenever you look at the packet and you look at that parcel, the total parcel is like 27.9 acres, right? But you're only requesting to rezone 6.3 acres of it is all, and it's just that area around the parking area. And
We
that
did
is
a
all.
meets and bounds because we didn't want
Right.
anybody to think that we were going to develop the trail, which we have no, that, the trail is a gem for our community and we don't want to do anything. But we do need to expand the parking lot at some point.
Yeah. Did you have something, Taylor? I just saw you come up. I didn't know if you had something.
Yeah, just in case you have questions about the surrounding land use, comprehensive plan items that for consideration of the rezone.
Move to,
I think we would like to go to third and final reading.
well, we need to.
You're on first reading, so if you want to move ahead, you'll need to suspend the rules and go to third
Make a
and
motion
final.
to waive the rules and move forward to third and final reading on the ordinance.
Suspend the rules?
Second.
Suspend the rules, yeah.
That was Mr. Wilms and Mr. Fowler. A roll call vote.
Council members Hughes,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes,
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
and Snow.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. I'll read it for a third time. Amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2024-55647, county parcel number 16-70260-003, from R1 residential single-family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district.
Motion to approve. That was third and final, right?
Oh, yeah. Second.
That was Mr. Hanschel and Mr. Fowler. A roll call vote.
Council members Wilms,
yes,
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Next one is an ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2024-55729, county parcel number 16-03465-000, from R1 residential single-family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. And this is, I believe, is part of the Kingsdale parking lot. Was inadvertently not included and passed. Did you want to hear from Mr. Judson?
No, once again, I just want to be sure, be clear on this, that parcel is a total of 13.79 acres, but they're only requesting 2.65 acres of it be rezoned. So it's not that whole entire area that you see if you went on the GIS map or if you look at this packet. It's only the area that encompasses around the parking and some, I guess it'd be a little bit south that's already parking. I mean, everything that you're requesting be rezoned is already parking, the net of it is. So that's what it is.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final.
second,
That was Mr. Fowler and Mr. Wilms. A roll call vote.
Council members Snow,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Wilms,
yes,
Fowler,
Yes.
and Hanschel.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. I'll read it for a third and final time. Amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2024-55729, county parcel number 16-03465-000, from R1 residential single-family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district.
move to approve,
Second.
That was Mr. Wilms and Mr. Fowler. Roll call vote.
Council members Hughes,
Yes.
Wilms,
yes,
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
and Snow.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Next one is an ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map to rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2024-55458. A portion of county parcel number 16-18693-000 from R1 residential single-family district to C1 neighborhood commercial district. Is there any discussion, or would you like to hear from
I have a question. Is this one need to proceed to third and final as well? It's not marked.
I did not request a third and final, just due to the amount of conversation that was had on this one. Typically, I'll only ask third and final if there's no questions.
Do you want to tell us a little more about it? Please.
This one has a history. Over a year ago, it failed at the Planning Commission meeting when they were requesting a C2 light commercial, which is a much more intense request. They were also requesting the entire parcel. However, they have waited the year after that PC failure denial to return and request a much smaller, the C1, which is a much less intense, as well as reducing the area of land to be rezoned. They're only requesting the west half, or about under 2.5 acres, 2.36 acres on the west side that's adjacent to the major minor arterial along the west side. And they are leaving the east half as single-family residential. Their intent of that is to provide a buffer between this site, which would be C1, and the R1 zones to the east. Just like any rezone, typically we're not supposed to focus on just the one use that they're wanting the rezone for. We're supposed to consider all the uses, the comprehensive plan, as well as surrounding uses. After discussing this portion with the applicant, talking about last year's, why it failed, kind of what's more compliant for that area. C1 was what we landed on, obviously, because that's what's here for you tonight. But there are non-residential uses that are consistent with the C1 zoning to the south, which is a church. There's a church to the south, directly to the south of this, as well as an existing water tower that is typically a commercial use as well, just to the southeast portion. So the property that directly abuts this subject rezone area is more in line with the C1 and the C2. C2 is probably far too intense for this area. But other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
So the
No, go ahead. Sorry.
purpose of the use will be a future water tower, as I understand. Is that correct? Potentially?
Really, we're not, as we said at the work session, and as we've said many times, we're not supposed to
we
talk
can't-
about what their particular future plans may be when considering a rezoning.
Yeah, understand.
Retract that statement.
So asking that question, and I understand that, so I'm just asking a question. So would the addition of another water tower fit in a C1 zoned property? You know what I mean? Would it meet the permitted use?
It would not be a permitted use. It would be consistent with a neighborhood commercial. However, when we made the use chart, we made it conditional almost everywhere. I guess the planning commission really wanted to review those anywhere they went, so. It needs a conditional use permit.
Conditional, so it would have to
Return
go
to the
back
planning commission
Right, exactly.
before they got their large-scale development, so that way the planning commission could prescribe, additional items that they needed to protect the life and welfare on that east side, the residential.
Hopefully they wouldn't request a fence.
For a water tower?
Did I understand you to say there were a lot of complaints?
No, there was no complaints, just the discussion seemed to be that the C2 was too intense the first time it went through planning commission over a year ago.
And this is a reduction from C2 to C1, which is a
Yeah.
less intense use.
Which when it went through, staff also recommended knocking it down to a C1, however, it just failed flat, so it's returned again for a C1.
I'd move to approve the request to rezone.
That's not in order. This is an ordinance, so
Yeah, this is
we
just
need
the first reading,
to
guys.
suspend the rules if we're going to move ahead.
Oh, okay. Is there any need to go to third and final? No.
I would leave that for your decision.
You know, I don't want to step on you. Are you still, in my mind, I'm just looking at this and, drove out to the property and, took a look at everything was around the neighborhood that sets down behind what is already there, which is a water tower, right? And this C1 rezone is actually further from the neighborhood kind of development, if you will, than the one that is there right now.
Yeah.
And I understand it has to go through planning commission, it'd have to be like a C1 and because it's a conditional use, but if that's it, I don't really see that as probably being an issue in the future. We would only know if that was proposed to happen. But in my mind, I don't really see a need to really have a further discussion. I would make a motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final.
I'd second that.
Question?
That was Mr. Fowler and Mr. Wilms. Mr. Snow, you had a question?
Yeah, what is the reason for going to third and final? I think it's not, this is not an urgent matter. It's not something that's going to take place in the next 90 days, 60 days, 90 days. So what's the urgency in going to?
In my mind, it isn't urgent. I think it's just pretty obvious that it's going to be approved, and I don't see any reason to keep it on the agenda, you know, to have further discussions on it. And we've got other city business to handle and to manage, you know, on our next meetings. And if it's pretty obvious it's going to be approved, which I think it will, then let's go ahead and take care of it.
We had a good discussion with,
Mayor, there's a motion and a second on the floor.
Okay, so.
So, I mean, there can be debate on whether you ought to move ahead
Yeah.
to third reading, but
Yeah.
that's what the debate should be limited to at this moment.
Yeah, I thought they were free to discuss prior to voting, right? Okay.
Discuss the
Go ahead,
motion.
Larry.
we had a good discussion at our work session about this particular request to rezone, and I think it's not something that is going to happen overnight if development does occur there. It's a timing thing, so they want to make sure that have all their ducks in a row to get moved to, for development on that property at some future date, but it's not tomorrow or next week or next month, even not next year. So to hold it open for us and not move it along and close it out seems to be a waste of our time. It's kind of where I come from.
Okay, I think we can go ahead with the roll call vote on the motion to go to third and final.
Need to read it.
Oh, yeah, I need to read it again, correct.
No.
No, third and final.
You've got to suspend the rules to go to a third reading, and then you would read it.
Right, okay.
Council
Didn't we
member,
make a motion on that?
We did.
we
Yeah, and
did.
you seconded it.
Fowler made the motion, the second
And
was
Wilms, right,
Wilms, okay.
okay. Go ahead.
Council members Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Snow,
No.
and Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-1 to go to third and final. Ordinance amending the Bella Vista zoning ordinance and map the rezone property described in rezoning petition number 2024-55458, portion of county parcel number 18693-000 from R1 Residential Single Family District to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District.
Move to approve.
Second.
It was Mr. Wilms and Mr. Fowler.
Roll call vote. Council members Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Snow,
No.
and Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-1. Next one is an ordinance amending various sections of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide for renaming of the Department of Community Development Services to the Department of Planning and Development, providing for reorganization, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. And staff requests moving to third and final, and I believe there's also an emergency clause on this, but first question would be to move the third and final, but is there a discussion?
I guess I have some reservations. I don't know that we've had a full opportunity to assess the full impact of that. I had a long conversation with Chief Sims, and he explained to me how that would fit into their program now. And so there's still some unanswered questions, and I think that I'd like another month to be able to pursue clearer evaluation of the proposal. I think it's a significant move. It's not a minor move. It's not really a name change. It's really a reorganization of what's left of community development services. So I think that's deserves a little bit more attention on our part. I don't know that whether we would act on it tonight or next month, it will have an impact for budgeting purposes because it's just a matter of moving the numbers from one ledger column to another ledger column is about what it amounts to. So I would make a motion that we table it until November for action.
Well, it's an ordinance, so it would be on first reading, right? We would just, if we'd like to come to vote tonight.
It's on first reading tonight.
Yeah.
If you move to table it to next month, it will be on first reading next month. If you just let it lie, it will go to second reading next month.
Okay. So then I'll withdraw my request.
Any other discussion?
I just,
Great.
the one question I had is what constitutes this as being an emergency? I don't, and I understand, I understand why you want it to go, but there's no real emergency to getting this through, tonight. That's what I don't know. What is is it an emergency or is this something that we can discuss and take through all the readings?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking any.
I can't speak as to why it's an emergency, other than they requested it
Okay.
contain an emergency clause, so it would be immediately effective as soon as you pass it. Again, I don't want to create confusion, but it's different. There are two different things going on here. Suspending the rules and speeding up final consideration is different than passage of an emergency clause. One is speeding up the pace at which you bring it to final decision. The emergency clause is the rate at which it becomes law after you adopt it.
Okay.
So that's the two different timetables there. Okay. You can let this go 3 full readings and then pass an emergency clause. You could do both. You could do that.
That might cause some problems vis-a-vis the budget and whatnot. But I think that staff requested the emergency because of as he explained it, once you decide to do it, it becomes effective right away, rather than.
And that's all I was getting at. I just wanted to make sure I understood the rationale, I guess, more so than anything.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Jerry?
I think the work session was the first time this was brought to our attention, and we just got a proposed organizational chart tonight. I think that we should have the opportunity to evaluate this a little bit further before we make a complete change in the operational department without any more information than what we've got right now.
Yeah. Would you like to have discussion by Taylor or Chief Sims or both?
I think we ought to do that the next work session.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I would like to. Taylor, when we had work session, you brought all that information. We had a ton of information at the work session.
I had the organizational charts with me on the screen if you guys wanted to look at it.
Yeah,
PowerPoint, but this is the first time you guys have a physical document.
Oh, okay. Because I recall in work session seeing all the information. I have no problem with it going to third and final. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding
Oh, sure. Yeah.
what
I understand.
what it was. So
And just an additional add-on, there are some just cleanups that I wanted to do very soon. We still have some items that probably should have been cleaned up during the June ordinance. We're still referred to as the planning and code enforcement department in a few areas of our code, as well as task assignments in the code, kind of cleaning that up too. So it's kind of, in that sense, quicker the better kind of situation, but totally understand if that's.
well, that's what I mean. We had a really good discussion in work session. I thought it was pretty clear. So, like I said, I have no problem with third and final.
Go ahead, Doug.
No, yeah, so, just the mayor and I we've had a couple of conversations about this. And, my perspective on this, and I think that I was kind of led this way just from past conversations about the mayor role within the city. The mayor is the CEO, he's the president, he's the leader, and everyone works for him. and there isn't anyone that works for us, okay? And I understand that, I fully understand that. And I don't know if this is what the mayor thinks he wants to do, or believes obviously it is what he thinks he wants to do, or believes he wants to do. I don't know that I'm in a position to tell him that that he can't. I'll put it that way. But having said that, I would like to take, I think, a step back and take a breath and get a little closer to it and understand how it's going to work and how it's going to function. And I don't believe, I mean, even if we passed it in November with the emergency clause, hopefully that all that stuff with the financials and how all that works and moving things around would still allow time for that to happen, you know, before the end of the year. Because I really, and maybe it's my bad, I haven't had the opportunity to sit down with Chief Sims yet and just kind of, if you want to come up and speak, I mean, that's fine with me, it's up to the mayor. But
Sure,
even if
come on
you
up.
do, I still think I'd like to sit down and just have an overall conversation at some point.
Yeah, I thought the mayor was gonna have me speak this evening about this, so I didn't see me on the report, so that's why I hadn't come up yet. And I apologize for not being here at the work session, but I was on vacation.
That's
So
fine.
enjoying
Nobody's-
cold weather in
You're
South
entitled.
Carolina, just so you know. No, just a real quick thing here to kind of help kind of understand a little bit about my portion of the changeover and people moving over to the fire department. And I did speak to Councilmember Wilms for about 30 minutes or so today and kind of discuss a little bit in depth, a little bit further back on the fire inspectors coming over, or the building inspectors coming over to the fire department. But with the permitting is what we're talking about. We're talking about 3 permit techs and 1 residential plan reviewer, okay? Those are all dictated and lined out in the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, which the fire chief oversees, okay? Permitting is volume 3, section 105. It talks about permitting and how that permitting process is laid out. And keep in mind, those 3 permit technicians assign duties and work to my employees. So that's why we felt like that would be a better move for them coming over under the fire department, because it all pertains to the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code. 1, 2, 3. Section 3 is permitting. Section 2 is residential building. So it's all covered in the fire code. So why wouldn't these employees be under the fire department if they're already assigning work to my fire building inspectors? They lay out their work plan. Their work day is laid out by those permit technicians.
They're also deputies, you correct?
That's correct. Any of those are deputies under the fire chief or the chief building official, which currently right now, Fred Huddleston is the chief building official. He works under me as the fire chief. That's why we're asking for this move coming out of planning, the permitting, to come into the place where it should be, under the direction of the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code.
And I guess in rebuttal to that, there are many other cities in Arkansas that haven't taken that tact of transferring everything into the fire department or the police department for code enforcement and building permits and functions. And so we've gotten along for a long time without this being done. This fire code is not something that happened yesterday. It's been here for a long time.
Well, if you remember, Larry, the fire department was over the fire code. Back before that change was made, before they made the planning division or the community development, the fire department overseen all of that.
That was when
It was just a branch that they
with the-
tried to branch away from under Mayor Anderson.
That was
to
when
try
it
to
was,
get
that was when it was
direction
with the
going.
POA, you're saying.
No, I'm talking about under the city.
Yeah. So how was it with the POA?
With the POA, it was
Yeah.
handled by the ACC and the fire department.
Yeah. So I'm just saying is that I don't know that all of the cities have chosen to go this route, and there's obviously a reason for that, even though I understand what you're saying, is that it may be covered under the fire code.
All we're asking for is the permitting employees and the plan reviewer for residential construction, which falls under the fire code, to come over to the fire department.
I hear
That's
what
what we're
you're,
asking for. We're not asking for anything else other than what is already in the fire code to come under the fire department.
I hear you, understand.
Over
what
the
you-
direction
I
of the
understand
fire
what
code.
you're asking for, sir. I do.
Yeah, Chief, I get the feeling you're a little upset here.
No, I'm
And-
not
and I
upset.
don't know, it kind of feels like it. And, as city council members, it's an ordinance, it's a law, right? And we're asked to vote on it. And, like I just mentioned before, I don't think I'm gonna oppose it, but I'd like just to take a little time to take a breath
Yeah.
on it and read it, and just to get comfortable with it, myself before I vote on it, that's all. And I don't know that that's gonna really hurt anything in the process here, to have the opportunity to do that. Because I don't like to vote on anything that I have not, like, kind of, if you will, immerse myself in, right? And I haven't this. So I would just like a little time just to research it a little bit more. And it's not that I don't believe you, I do believe you. I know you know the code. I don't have any doubt about that. But I really haven't gotten close enough to it yet.
It has nothing to do with me knowing the code. It's just laying
Well-
out where those people work through.
Okay.
And where they're actually, their job descriptions are laid out is in the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code. That's all I'm saying. I'm not upset about nothing. The mayor wanted me to come talk about this, which is fine. I'm laying out why we're wanting to move them over there, because they line out the work for my employees.
Okay.
Well,
Those 3 permit technicians line out the daily work for the building inspectors.
that's because, Chief, that's because we transferred those inspection employees over to your department a year and a half ago or so.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, had we not done that, then they would still be under the building inspection department, under CDS.
That's correct.
Yeah. So even though they're separated, and it seems like a simple process, there are some things that I think I would like to have settled in my own mind about how that's going to impact us long-term.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just telling you where that's laid out at.
I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
there's 2 or 3 council people, I think, I got the impression, felt like they wanted to think about it till November. I don't see anything wrong with that. Jerry, did you?
No, I was just about to say, Mayor, I mean, as Councilman Fowler pointed out, the departments all report to you, but I think how the city is functioning all comes under legislative. And I just like to understand, I know we've had issues in the past, or had concern in the past, it taking 6 to 8 months to get a building permit. This process, is that going to improve that, or is it going to continue to be that long? Or, what is the process going to be, or how is it going to work with all the different departments now?
Well, it's gonna work the same way, the same employees, right? The same 3 people are gonna be lining out the workload, correct?
Right,
They're just in different areas.
Taylor?
I mean, just
Go
to
ahead.
kind of, I do just want to confirm something real quick before we move out. A building permit review has never taken 6 to 8 months. I believe that time frame came from maybe the whole review process, as starting with the septic designer, getting your approval from ADH, getting your draftsman to put the spec house on it, getting your grading plan, putting on it, and then submitting to the city. The longest that the permit review ever happened in CDS since I've been here, February of 2020, was 3 months. And that was fixed as of last month. We are now to 4 to 6 weeks. So we've got that down almost half, or by 2/3, sorry. But the process won't be any different. We're actually already set up like this, essentially. What's left of the building division under me right now is still going to be reviewing the building permits. The permit techs only intake building applications. They don't intake my stuff. I'm now over it all, but when I was planning division, the permit technicians don't handle planning applications. We have a whole separate division that handles that, that's set up for that. So we're already set up in this structure. It's just a cleanup, essentially, moving those technicians and the plans examiner with the rest of the building division, which currently, derives from the chief building official, who is no longer under me. So that's essentially the cleanup. And clerical situations. There's lots of red in that exhibit document that you guys have, but Essentially a cleanup, both clerical and process and reporting, and getting in line with the building code. But it won't change anything. We'll still be in the same building. We'll all still be together. We'll still work right next to the plans examiner. We'll still work right next with the permit technicians. It's just the planning and development office, which was, the planning and engineering essentially is what it is. We already are set up in their silos for their different types of applications. Building already has theirs. So there's building and then there's planning and development applications. They're two totally different things. So we're just gonna propose to move the building applications with the rest of the building division.
I did want to point out that, with these new changes we're having, that permitting, planning and development, building inspectors, fire number 1, and city hall are all going to be in the same place. And I'm quite confident the coordination is going to be way better than it's ever been. The fire chief told me he's really looking forward to the building inspectors being right there where he is, so he sees them every morning before they go out, things like that. We're going to have just a lot better coordination.
Yes, sir.
It's all good to hear. I mean, I feel better, as the conversation moves along, but I don't know that it really hurts anything to go to a second reading, so that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Why don't we just go again in November and, work on it some of the work session. And
One question before we.
go ahead, Jerry.
In permitting, is there going to be like an office or something that says permitting department? Or if somebody comes to City Hall and says, hey, I want a permit, well, you got to go to the fire department? I mean, is there going to be split up so that people can?
All the people that will review applications of any kind will be in the same area. We will be under, when it's all said and done, May 2026, the portion or the door that faces 340 Lancashire, that will be where all of us are. So all of the permitting, planning, engineering, anyone who reviews something or faces the public will be together in that one door. So as soon as the public walks in, they'll be with someone who can review an application or help them with that.
It's where City Hall is now.
And so the permitting department will be with planning, but.
There'll be an
the peop-
IT person, maybe a compliance person, as well as planning, engineering, permitting, a little bit of everybody will be right there.
But
The permitting will be right where Wendy Hardina is.
right, but they'll be reporting to the fire chief though.
Yes, to his
Right.
department. yeah.
Well, if y'all decide to do what you're gonna do.
All tentative.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, your help.
I don't have a problem with it going to any type of readings, and I apologize if you seem like I was upset. But I was just trying to lay out where that falls in the fire code and how it relates to the fire department. That's all I was trying to do.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was first reading. Next one was Resolution L, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with the National Auto Fleet Group pursuant to a Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Agreement for the purchase of one 2024 Ford Super Duty F-350 four-wheel drive truck in an amount not to exceed $65,000 for use by the police department.
Move to approve.
Second.
That was Mr. Wilms and Mr. Fowler. Is there any discussion?
The only thing I just want to say real quick is we really had a long conversation about this with the rationale from Captain Cook at the work session last week. Took us through many, many details and all the background and everything, so I'm quite comfortable on voting on this.
We covered that one well.
This truck,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Council members Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Snow,
Yes,
and Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Next one is a resolution approving a health insurance and benefit plan for city employees to begin January 1, 2025. think Glenda Kelderman is here if you need to hear from her. I know there was some conversation last week about it.
I think it was explained thoroughly last week.
It was.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
that was Mr. Fowler and Mr. Hansel. Roll call vote.
Council members Snow,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
and Hanschel.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Next one's a resolution approving the base year millage rollback computation and certification form pursuant to Arkansas Constitution Amendment 59 and Arkansas Code annotated 26-26-404 and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said form. Jason, you want to speak
I
on
can. There's a document that I put there at each of your seats, and then there were a handful I put on the table in the back for the audience of the form, which was emailed to me today. Yours is on two sides of one piece of paper, but it's the same as this. So this, we were notified by the county that after they completed the countywide reappraisal, that an increase in the total amount of taxable property exceeded 10%. So what that means is that pursuant to Amendment 59, millage rates must be rolled back so that the increase due to the countywide reappraisal does not exceed 10%. So, for example, you've adopted a 4% or 4 mil general millage. Because of that rollback, if you look on the page that has the long table on it, after the rollback, the millage rate would be 3.804. And that's to keep the amount of increase down to 10%, all right? So yes, it is a decrease in the tax rate to accommodate an increase in the valuation of taxable value. So people will be, and people don't like to hear this, they will be paying more taxes, the rate drops, and that is a protection to the taxpayer so that they don't get hit with even higher property tax bills because of a reappraisal. So that Amendment 59 is very complicated, and so that is at the root of what this is about. So if you look at again, I said the long table at the bottom, of course, at the top, you'll see all these various calculations. So at the bottom, you adopted a 4 mil rate. It will be 3.804. You have 1 mil that's fire pension. That is going to be, instead of 1, it'll be 0.0951 mils. And then the legal question that I had was because, as you recall, the voters approved an additional half mil for the police pension that we just put on for our certification to collect next year. In my mind, there's a question about whether or not that additional half mil is subject to rollback, as it was a tax increase during the base year. I know I'm getting very complicated. I'm going to lose everybody, but and I'm sorry about that. I wish I could explain a little better, but I've reached out to the county attorney about that. He understands my question. He did not get back to me with an answer to that question tonight, by tonight. We did get this corrected form from the county, so that could be their answer that this is what they think it is, and they're not going to entertain the fact that additional half mil is not rolled back. So this calls for a rollback of the full 1 for the police, full 1 for the fire, all 4 for our general millage. I think, frankly, that's probably a safer approach to go ahead and agree to roll that back, that additional half, because number one, it's money, it's a significant amount of money. Any amount of money is a significant amount of money, particularly if you don't have it when you're paying it. But the difference to the city budget is minimal as it relates to potential risk by not rolling back and having a court tell us we had to roll that back, because then we would be talking about attorney's fees and everything else. So my recommendation to you is to go ahead and approve
this certification as you have. That operates as an exhibit to the resolution and to move forward in that way. This is really a county issue. We kind of have to say, yes, we understand what they say. I had a legal question. Either they didn't agree with it or they didn't get back to us in time. And so my recommendation is to go ahead and to go with the figures you have. I would just add this. One of the prior forms we had did not even account for that additional $500,000, and so we had to get that fixed anyway. So we've done that. We account for all of it now, and so that's what you see.
So in summary, instead of 6 mils, is it what, 5.73?
It's 5.73 rather than 6.
So we had 5.5 mils. The taxpayers passed a $500,000 to go to 6.0, and now we're rolled back to 5.73. So, you know, the last time we rolled back, it went from 4 to 3.97. It barely went down. So we must have had a pretty healthy increase in the value of housing.
This is a direct result
Because
of
of
the
bigger
increased market value of real property.
So that's the resolution, and our attorney recommends that you go ahead and pass that.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
That's Mr. Fowler and Mr. Wilms. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Snow,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
and Hunchel.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. For announcements, the next city council work session is 5:30 p.m. on Monday, November 18 at the police training room. The next city council regular meeting is 6 p.m. Monday, November 25 here at the district court. Planning Commission work session is 4:30 p.m. Thursday, October 31 at the Bella Vista District Court. Planning Commission regular meetings 4:30 p.m. or immediately following the Board of Zoning adjustment Tuesday, November 12 at Bella Vista District Court. And Board of Construction Appeals is 3 p.m. Tuesday, November 12, if necessary, at Fire Station Number 4 Conference Room, which is at 1639 Forest Hills Boulevard. So if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn.